Hello and welcome to Honest Tarot Deck Reviews. I'm Carly from Soundside Studios in Austin, Texas. In this video, we're going to chat about the Herbcrafter's Tarot. I'll give you details on the creators, I'll show you my favorite cards, and we'll compare this deck across our 5 standard categories so you can decide if this is the right deck for your collection. Let's go! We've got to start with the deck basics. This book and deck set was published in 2019. It was written by Letitia Guthrie and illustrated by Joanna Powell Colbert. The Herbcrafter's Tarot explores the relationship between plants and people, especially the way that we use them for creativity, ritual, medicine, and even spiritual guidance. What makes this deck so unique is that it explores the relationship between the properties of herbs and the people that use them. As the author Letitia Guthrie writes, the Herbcrafter's Tarot celebrates the handicrafts, tools, and time-honored folk skills related to herbs, trees, flowers, and other plants that share their gifts with us. It's an engaging introduction to herbalism and plant spirit magic and can be used as a profound divinatory tool. Joanna acknowledges that just as tarot represents archetypes in traditionally human forms, herbs represent archetypes in botanical forms. The creators highlighted herbs from the spaces they call home. That would be the Pacific Northwest and the Sonoran Desert. They also lightly emphasize herbs associated with their heritage, including Letitia's Mexican-American lineage and their shared Celtic heritage. The major arcana cards show us the journey of an herb crafter as she meets the wilderness and learns how to cultivate a garden for herself and one for the world. The minor arcana cards represent the activities it takes to do that. We experience her life from the perspective of the plant. Herbs are chosen for each suit according to how their medicine is acquired. The suit of air, the suit of swords, honors the medicine that comes from noticing, observing the plants as they are. Therefore, many of the plants are tall and sword-like in shape. The suit of fire celebrates the alchemy of herbcraft, showing busy scenes of an herb crafter making tinctures and potions. This is your suit of wands. The suit of water, or suit of cups, emphasizes water-based medicines. So you'll see teas and baths featured on these cards. Now here is where I think their genius in creating this deck is truly highlighted. They chose particular plants associated with categories that line up with the numbers of the suits. For instance, the 4 aces are dooryard herbs and weeds. The 2s are plants that attract pollinators or feed our animal friends. The 3s are plants which are easy to grow. The 4s are plants used for borders or hedges. 5s are plants listed as endangered or threatened by the United Plant Savers. 6s are abundantly producing plants. 7s are ancient trees. 8s are root medicine plants. The 9s are fruit trees. And the 10s are cover crops and composting plants. The 16 court cards honor the legacy of women healers through history. These are the medicine keepers of ages, hedge witches, midwives, grandmothers, tias. These are the people that had secret recipes and passed them down through generations of the family. The names are changed to represent the archetypes embodied by the individual as they mature in their craft, from wanderer to warrior to midwife to teacher. The deck is housed in my definition of the perfect box. It's not too big nor too small. It's beautiful when it's on your shelf, sturdy when you take it on a trip, and the ribbon inside allows you to draw the cards out with ease. Let's talk about the cards themselves. They're a standard size with a pretty thick cardstock, but regardless, they're very easy to shuffle and they're very easy to work with. The backs are a motif of herbs, tools, and even a butterfly that always stands out to me. The top mirrors the bottom, so this does work well if you want to use reversals. The finish is glossy, making the cards a little bit slippery, but luckily not too hard to photograph. You know it's not an honest tarot deck review until I show you the big three and give you my thoughts on the illustrations and the writing for these cards. We're starting with the Three of Cups. This card depicts a tea party and is associated with the herb lemon balm. According to the authors, lemon balm helps to lift the spirits. It also grows very easily. So they associate this with friendships. Friendships help to lift the spirit, and if you can, allow them to flourish. They're so positive to have in our lives. Now, I love that meaning, and I think they did an excellent job of tying all of that together. Personally, if I just look at this image, I am not drawn to it, but that's only because I love seeing the other pictures where the herbs are featured in their wild and natural state. So this polished and domesticated tea party setting, it just doesn't grab me. However, I still take my hat off to the great writing and the great thought that went into connecting all of these elements and delivering a wonderful message to you and me when we read the card. Our second card is the Star. If you've been watching these videos, you know the Star is my favorite card in the tarot deck. That is not true for this tarot deck though, because the authors equated the Star archetype with a cottonwood tree. The authors claim that the cottonwood tree can symbolize hope, belief, and faith. Cottonwoods grow next to water, and so if you're lacking inspiration, water can always be a source of that divine consciousness flowing. I admit that is lovely, that is beautiful, but because of personal experience with cottonwood trees, I really cannot make that shift in my head. I grew up next to many, many cottonwoods, so I equate them with sappy and sticky patio furniture. I remember running track and coughing on the cotton that had been floating in the air that I inhaled as I was running. And I remember getting hit in the head with seed pods when they fall out of the trees. So I completely commend the creators for putting the cottonwood into the deck. I'm just not going to be able to ever equate the cottonwood with the Star. That's just me though. Our third card of the big three is the Death card. I love, love, love that they chose to use a marigold as the herb to represent death. Chef's kiss. The picture features a mandala of marigolds surrounded by papel picado, the tissue paper flags that we see at Day of the Dead ceremonies. And then you have the beautiful monarch butterflies attracted to the sap of the marigolds. The butterflies represent the beautiful transition from caterpillar to butterfly. And this is really what that death card speaks to. As the author writes, honor your experiences as they pass. Like the delicate paper flags, life is fragile and fleeting. It's a perfect representation of the card, the herb, and a ritual that already exists and is performed by people at the beginning of November each year. Our highlight card is Justice. A lot of people have had trouble connecting to this archetype. If you have found it to be unrelatable in the past, this deck might change all of that for you, because they chose the herb cannabis for the Justice card. And the picture is an arrangement of its leaves on the United States Constitution. The authors have a very specific message they want you to have when you interpret this card. Let's chat about the 5 categories that can help you decide if this is the right deck for you. Is this deck queer friendly? Well, it's a little hard to tell because there are not many people featured in the deck at all. One thing I will say is that the only pronouns used are she and her, and there is a focus on the tradition of women as being healers, and so I wonder if that might feel a little bit exclusive to people that don't align with those pronouns. Is this deck racially diverse? Well, considering that the cards really don't feature humans, it feels inaccurate to call this deck diverse. When hands are featured, they do come from a range of backgrounds. Are people with disabilities represented? No, but only because very few people are represented at all. Is there a diverse range of body shapes? Well, no, because there's not a diverse range of people that are shown in the cards, because these cards are primarily focused on the herbs. But what I will say is that I appreciate the range of ages that are represented in the cards. You have the younger healers, and then you have the honor and respect that grandmothers and wise women in our communities have. And you can see that shift through the cards. So I do commend the deck for including all ages and stages of womanhood. Is there a balance of gender represented and a range of expressions? No. Really, this deck focuses on the roles that women have held historically as healers in their communities. I do think that's a little bit limiting, as many different people can be healers, but I always appreciate when an author speaks to what they know, and I think that's what these authors did in the deck. Let's compare this deck to a traditional deck that has always served as a good baseline for us. So this leads us to the next category. How closely do the meanings align with the Rider-Waite-Smith? I would give this a glorious, gorgeous, beautiful 3 out of 5. Because we don't want the meanings to align one-to-one with the Rider-Waite-Smith, right? We've changed. Our society has shifted in the course of 100 years. We have slightly different values, and there's different ways we understand these archetypes in culture and society today. A little evolution is very important in order to keep tarot modern, contemporary, and relatable. The authors definitely were aware of this, and so they hold on to the core meaning of each archetype in each card, but they update the message so that it can better align with our life today and the different challenges we face, the different desires we have, the different words we use. I really like the way they updated things, so that's why this is a beautiful, gorgeous, fabulous 3 out of 5. Let's talk about the tone of this deck. If we were to rank this on a spectrum, with 1 being harsh, 5 being very gentle, then I would give this an absolute 5, maybe even a 6. Now, the reason why it's important to know the tone or the voice of a deck is that there's going to be tones more appropriate on some days than others. For instance, if you have just suffered a loss, or if you're experiencing a bout of depression or anxiety, that is not the time when you may want to work with a deck that is aggressive, shocking, violent, intense. Rather, that might be the type of day when you are going to reach for a deck that is kind and gentle and calming. I would absolutely classify this deck as the latter. The voice of this deck is like your grandmother who's talking to you, or a friend who's making you a hot tea and asking, how are you doing today? It has a very loving, supportive, and encouraging vibe, while being grounded and helping you think about solutions and actions and really consider what's in your best interest for what you want to do next in your life. Do the creators have experience with the subject matter? Yes. Why is this important? It is easy for somebody to write about a topic that they don't know very much about. They can just write in theory what they think something is about, especially when it comes to the world of tarot, when there is so much opportunity to make decks and make money in doing so. That's why when authors like this create a deck, I very much respect their knowledge of what they put into the subject matter. In this case, you can tell that they know a lot about herbs. I personally am not an herbalist, but I have some friends who are midwives who told me that these cards very closely align to the properties they know about the herbs. So I give them a thumbs up on approval from the midwives in my community. I can speak to their knowledge about tarot, and I was blown away at how excellent they did at translating these cards. You can tell that they really thought out how they wanted to align the cards with the numbers, with the suits, and how they shifted the hierarchies in the court cards. So I give them major props, tons of respect, and lots of appreciation for what they did for this tarot deck. So this brings us to our final question. Would I use this deck? The answer is yes, of course. I love to use this deck every year on my birthday. It's like getting great advice from my grandma. I also really like to bring this deck to my tarot classes. When I do that, I actually hand the deck over to the students. I find that working with this deck helps to open up their heart and their creative powers. The important thing here is that I don't read for other people with this deck because I don't really understand the herbs in the way the authors do. I prefer to let the authors speak directly to the individual. And so that could be something to keep in mind if you want to put this in your library or your collection, even if you're a professional tarot reader. Consider, would this be a good deck that you could empower other people to use? Because I have found that is when this is most effective and appreciated. I loved getting to make this video for you because I got to look at these cards in greater detail than ever before. I noticed that my favorite tree, the pomegranate, is actually the representation for the Nine of Pentacles, which, as you know, some people know, I call the Beyonce card. That made me so happy. Do you have any favorite herb, fruit, or flower that you hope is included in the deck? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more cool content like this. Follow me on my socials to stay in touch, and I'll see you later. Happy reading!